So now we go on to the next topic in Dhammanupassana, the Salayatana, the six sense bases. You know the arrangements of these topics, from starting with hindrances, aggregates, now sense bases, then the 7 factors of enlightenment, and the 4 noble truths. There is a reason for it. Many of these classifications of dhammas in the suttas and Abhidhamma, they are not simply put at random. For example, in the terms of instructions, as described by the Buddha, is often graduated stepwise from the simple to the more profound. Secondly, in terms of the groups, they are also put in a certain order, many of them practical. For example, the 5 spiritual faculties, or the 7 factors of enlightenment, or even the 4 foundations of mindfulness. You find that they are graduated in the sense that one would lead to the other. So similarly, when you come to Dhammanupassana, I think the same principle follows. For example, first we talk of the nivaranas, the hindrances, and those are more like the down end forces. So if you have a lot of these hindrances and defilements, you are a down end man. Then when you come to aggregates of clinging, it's more neutral. For example, you say rupa, materiality, is it wholesome or unwholesome? Moral, immoral or amoral? This amoral. Feelings, is it moral, immoral or amoral? It is amoral by itself, but it's connected with other things. It can be immoral. Then you talk of the sanya khanda, the perceptions. Are they moral, or amoral? It's so amoral. Perception is just perceive. But you add something to it and then there's a different story. Sankhara khanda, formations. It can be moral, it can be immoral, and it can be amoral. Because sankharas involve craving, you can include things like wisdom, they're all sankharas. Then consciousness, is it moral, immoral or amoral? Amoral. Consciousness is just consciousness. It's also dukkha, but still it's amoral. So it depends again on what it associates with. So the problem is with the sankhara khanda. Depends on who you associate with. It's like a small kid when you born a bambino, it's quite, mine is nothing wrong with it. But he ends up with some wrong friends. So there's this association. So when you come to Salayatana, 6 sense bases, then you can see the relationship between all this moral, immoral and amoral happening. And so you see all the processes going on. One important study in the Abhidhamma are called the thought processes. We call it citta vritti. Citta is consciousness, vritti is like a street. So it runs, tick, 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 tick. Another one, tick, tick, tick. That's when you get excited. When you learn about practice with this topic of 6 sense bases, then the whole picture becomes clearer. Firstly, again, like 5 aggregates, it begins to break up the individual, the world, 6 parts, and from the 6 parts, even more parts. And so one of this, it helps to bring about the removal of the wrong view of the self and establish the right view of the non-self. For example, in all the suttas, Giri Mananda Sutta, Buddha says, Katame cha Ananda Anatta Sanya. When what he speaks to Ananda is the contemplation of anatta. Chakung anatta, rupang anatta, sota anatta, satta anatta, gana, and so on. He talks of the 6 sense bases and the 6 sense objects as non-self. Because when you start splitting up all this, you find that the so-called idea of everlasting self is not there. Secondly, when you go into this Dhammanupassana on the 6 sense bases, you find that you're actually doing Cittanupassana in a more detailed and thorough way. Because you're tracing the pathways of thoughts. There's 6 main thought processes, and it depends on the 6 bases. Thought processes depending on the eye base, thought processes dependent on the ear base, nose base, tongue base, body base, and the mind base. And so you think of it as Paramatma Dhamma, ultimate realities. There's only one consciousness at one moment. So when you follow that consciousness arise and pass away, then you see it going through the 6 sense doors. Just like the teaching of I forgot his name, the Arahant, but it was a novice monk, to an elder. He says that he teaches him by use of the anthill. Formikayo. So he says that suppose a lizard, this lizard eats ants, this lizard would go into an anthill with 6 holes to catch the lizard. So when the elder heard this, he understood what to do. What do you do? Close 5 holes and leave one open. And when he comes, you catch it. Quale porta si apre, rimane apre. My Lord, good. Why? Perché? Because it is where the deeper insights arise. But in the beginning, you have to follow it. You go to the mind door when this concentration has been built up. How do you close the doors? See no evil, hear no evil, no evil. Well, we do that to some extent. We meditate, we close our eyes, put earplug, not so much smell. Pero sometimes, in Burma, very bad. In the hot season, some people sweat a lot. Somebody got BO, body odor. Then taste, of course, you don't taste unless you eat something. So there remains 2, body and the mind. How do you close the body door? Inject anesthesia, but then your mind also goes kaput. So concentration, jhana, of course, but concentration. So when you have concentration, then you're only at the mind door. But you cannot be in jhana all the time. You have to go out and work, you have to look after your bambini, to cook, you have to build houses and houses. During that time, you don't have to be mindful. No, during that time you have to be more mindful, because if you don't, it goes into unwholesome states. The purification, the development of the mind is not only retreat, although retreat is most conducive, it has to be done all the time. So that's why one of the favorite phrases by this Visu, if you know him, is no rest for the wicked. Visu. And so, what was the creation of all your problems? Essentially, it's the mind. The defilements all arise with the mind. So that's the root problem. So, what do? You have to follow the mind. So where does the mind run through? Where does the mind run through? To objects. But objects, there's so many objects. So it's very difficult to know unless you know the person well. Where does Mr. Bottiglia go? The Senor Bottiglia go? Senor Bottiglia, where does he go? Goes to Bottega. So you look for him where there's the beer or this bar or this, because he goes there. That is, you know him better. But generally, it's very, the teachings have simplified. There are only 6 highways. Eye, the ear, that's where the starting point of the road. And so to understand this whole process of the wandering mind, sometimes I tell people I was born under a wandering star. Well, let me tell you this. It's not only me. Every one of you is wandering in samsara for how many lifetimes, wandering along all these 6 highways looking for Bottiglia. And so to understand these 6 streets, okay, but to understand the streets better, there are many things you have to learn about this street. For example, if you study the thought processes, first you must understand the meaning of these basic components. First, the bases, the 6 bases, the eye base, ear base, and so on. Then there are the 6 doors, eye door, ear door, and so on. Then there are the 6 objects. Then there are 6 consciousness. Then you can finally come to the 6 processes. Included in this are the different functions. So from this, you can see this street. There are many substrates. So if you know them well, which is a door to enter, which is the base of the house to go, ding ding dong dong ding, ding. And then you can follow the consciousness closely. And when you follow it, you find that this consciousness changes with the different doors and different base and different objects and different blah 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 blah. So you follow. So you see, for example, this Mr. Botilia, you go run, and you follow him. When you go there, what happens to him? A certain door, and then he takes a certain form. He probably become a drunkard. After that, after a while, he ends up in another place called the Ospedale. Then he becomes like a skeleton. It's completely different. Except that he can't die. He can only suffer. He gets well and he runs through another door into another base, and then he finally ends up in the teatro, a theater, conservatorium of music, and then there he becomes the maestro. So finally you find who is this Mr. Bottilia. He can be also Mr. Maestro and so on. So running through all this, you find that you see that the consciousness, not one thing, but many things. So in the end, you just don't only observe the nature of the consciousness, but all the other phenomena that are around it. So finally what happens is, as I was telling about the Chittanupassana, you end up into the mind door. You go to the mind door and then it's a different story. Then you go to the door of doors, because once you go in, it seems to be endless. There's so many objects. So you have to choose the object. Then when you choose the right objects, then of course then you go to the right path. And so when you look into this Dhammanupassana of Salayatana, you see this flow chart. See the sense basis. Salayatana, ayatana means where the whole thought process begins. So all the whole number of chitta, all this eye door process, ear door process, mind door process, all goes, and that's why it starts from the ayatana, from the base. And so when you follow this consciousness to the basis, initially again you have all those defilements coming out. And this is because of the latent tendencies. It does not have to, and it's not always the case, but certainly they do happen quite often. So in the beginning you have to deal with these conditions. You have the conditioning of the sense basis. So you involve with the door, the object, and all that thing which I mentioned. So when your mind runs through this, then first you have to see the conditioning by these defilements and to clear them. So when you go to the eye door, you see something nice, then automatically an ordinary person would tend to get attached to it. So when they attach to it, they get stuck to it. For example, on and off, when I walk in the streets, let's say Torino for example, sometimes you see a woman staring for a long time at the shop window. I was wondering, what is she looking at? Pair of shoes. Then look at the shoe. Well, why do you need to look so long at the shoe? It's nothing special. And I suppose taste differ. Then this is still Torino story. I went to a story, I thought, look at the shop there. Wow, it's a purse which is, don't know, how many thousand? 5,000 rather. It's only this size. On the top of that, there are many holes in it. This is a see-through, Maybe it was made of gold, I don't know. It had some golden color. Then beside that, there was some clothes. The other end of the clothes, it was not so expensive, maybe a few thousand euros anyway. So there was a lady coming, ding, ding, ding. She looked at the clothes, and she looked at the bride. Niente, nothing. She walked away in disgust. This lady must be rich. So anyway, different people have different reactions. In this case, it didn't talk about the hindrances. Hindrances are more concerning concentration. This is, you talk about fetus, sangyojana, fetus. Fetus refers to chains. Yeah. I remember my Thai teacher tell us this example. He says, when you're a family, you're full of bondage. Your father ties you on the right hand, your mother ties left hand, son ties you on the right leg, your daughter ties you on the left leg, and your wife ties you on the neck. Of course, you don't simply tell this to anybody, With monks, of course, we say such things. So when you talk of fetters, it means bondage. So you go running around from one street to another. Sooner or later, you get trapped. They have this traps, people jaws catch you. It's like Mr. Bottilia, he ended up in a bar. So this bar has top class vino. He said, try this wine, just try. No need to pay, just try. Davvero, buonissimo. Wow, it's fantastic. Can I have another cup? Yes, you can have another cup. Can I have another cup? Money. But you're already tied up. You must be careful when you go through the system. You must be careful of fetters, bondage. The first chains that you have to break will be the five senses. Because if you are tied to these five senses, you cannot get free. Because the freedom comes in the mind door. When you say no, seeing, hearing, no, tasting, every time the craving comes, not craving, anger, delusion. Then when you can do this properly, then your sense restraint would be good. Then the concentration can settle. Because meanwhile, while you're training it, while the dog is running and the five sense doors, it still undergoes some training. And so because these sense objects are grosser, and so it's easier to build up mindfulness of the change, of the impermanence, of the non-self in a grosser form. So finally, when you come to the mind door, there's this mind consciousness and this mind objects. And when you go to the mind objects, gets very complicated. But eventually you go to it. For example, in the Mahasi system, usually they play safe. They try their best to stick to Kayanupassana, the body door. From the body, they also stick to the Rupa Dhamma, the materiality. To get a good stability and grounding. From there, you can start the mind, as your concentration deepens, you start going into the mind door. Usually they try to keep you on a more stable grounding, that even when you go into the real Dhammanupassana with reference to the three universal characteristics, is what you call still much connected with materiality. But no matter what happens, you finally would have to go into the mental phenomena. And this is something that sometimes it is many things that should have been said is left out. And because of that, I feel that it is limiting. It is limited. For example, there are 100 roads that lead to Rome. Of course, there are 1,000 roads that do not lead to Rome. And that road that leads to Rome also leads to Jerusalem. You don't understand? Well, it comes with what you call a saying. Can you call it a proverb? Expression. For example, they said, somehow we will get you to Jerusalem. That means get you to where you're supposed to go. Like the Chinese said, don't worry, we'll get you to London. Of course, this is meaning is different. When you take you to London, that means you take you to hell or somewhere. Because this is as far as they can think of. Okay, anyway, we won't go further to that. So you have 10 roads that lead you to Rome. Of course, you take the driver will drive you to Rome the most familiar with, and of course the one that is safest, but doesn't mean it's the easiest or the fastest. For example, you go to driving nowadays, you have the Navigatore. So you say you want to take here to Rome. They usually give you the shortest path and the shortest time. Also, it doesn't mean it's the easiest, because some of these roads are often traffic jam. So in the same way, Kayanupassana takes you there. And generally, it is because it deals a lot with rupa. It's more simple. But it depends on who you are. Sometimes you have to learn a lot on the Vedananupassana, Chittanupassana, Dhammanupassana. Because when you go into the mind door, then you have a whole range of objects that can arise. Keep to your rising, falling. Wrong, it's a good way. But rising, falling also will not always be there. Sometimes it disappears altogether. Sometimes it doesn't look like rising, falling at all. And often the pain overshadows it. When it becomes subtle, concentration becomes high, then you start going to the mind consciousness. Finally it goes to other types of mind objects. And so all this needs training. So when we ask what's the difference then between Chittanupassana and this Dhammanupassana of Salayatana? Well, Chittanupassana is just talking about the consciousness. And in Salayatana, although the consciousness is of main concern, but all other things like the bottega and the botico, all those are also involved. What it involves is the processes. And all processes, finally you end up also with the three universal characteristics. So this is in short the sense basis. We will spend more time on the factors of enlightenment.